49ers lose at home to the Jacksonville Jaguars 26-21, a game in which they had 4 turnovers and didn't have any takeaways and still had a chance to win the game, only to have Brock Purdy end the game with his 3rd turnover. Now, Brock Purdy, as you know, missed the past 2 games with turf toe, claimed that he was ready to come back, that he wouldn't come back unless he played like Brock Purdy. Well, if 3 turnovers is playing like Brock Purdy, then Brock, you probably should have stayed on the bench. Because the reality is, if Mac Jones would have started this game, the 49ers would have won. If Mac Jones would have started this game, the 49ers would have won. And Brock Purdy, let's just call it the way it is. Brock Purdy is the reason the 49ers lost this game. All the Jaguars had to do was show up. And that's what they did. And Brock Purdy single-handedly gave the Jaguars the game with his 3 turnovers. He had 2 interceptions and 1 fumble that ended the game. And this is poetic justice of your Eric Armstead, because it's one of the reasons people love football. They love the drama. And Eric Armstead, who was let go, ended up with the Jaguars, signed his contract extension. He's the one who ended the game by forcing the fumble against Brock Purdy. And it's just unfortunate. You kind of saw the writing in the stars, in the sense that the 49ers came out very, very uninspired, if that's how you want to say it. The 49ers just were not clicking at all. Special teams was terrible. The 49ers run defense was terrible. The offense just couldn't click. They could not run the ball well at all. I think Christian McCaffrey just had under 50 yards rushing. You had Brian Robinson, who had 5 carries for 21 yards. So he did average more than 4 yards a carry, but not Christian McCaffrey. And just the 49ers just looked, honestly, like they had no rhythm whatsoever. They still have no idea what their identity is. On top of that, Ricky Pearsall went down and didn't come back into the game. It looks like he re-aggravated the knee injury from last week. And so there's a lot of question marks. But before we get to the negative, because there's plenty of that, let's talk about some of the positives. One of the positives, Fred Warner. Fred Warner, who we'll talk about in a little bit. Fred Warner ended up with another forced fumble, 17, which is the most in franchise history, eclipsing Patrick Willis. And we all are big Patrick Willis fans. Patrick Willis, the Hall of Fame linebacker Patrick Willis. Fred Warner just eclipsed the most forced fumbles. And granted, they didn't recover that fumble, but he did force another fumble. So that was 17 in his career. And he's probably the only bright spot on this team right now is Fred Warner, specifically on the defense. Yes, Upton Stout had that interception that was overturned later on, but Fred Warner's just been shining week in and week out, and so he really needs some help. So before we go even further, when we talk about needing help for Fred Warner, I think that means John Lynch needs to get on the phone and make a call to the Bengals this week. The 49ers need Trey Hendrickson because, again, we're going to talk about the defense later, but talk about that run defense. Absolutely non-existent. Travis Etienne was like the Travis Etienne of old. He had 19 carries for 124 yards, had that 48-yard touchdown run. It was absolutely abysmal to watch as a 49er fan. Now let's talk about a couple other highlights. We talked about Fred Warner. He is now the franchise record holder for most forced fumble. Jake Tonjes, now with his 2nd touchdown, he had that 20-yard touchdown catch from Brock Purdy to get the 49ers back in the game, up to 21 points. And you really thought that the 49ers were going to turn things around. But Jake Tonjes, as the number 3 tight end, because remember, it's George Kittle, you have Luke Farrell, and then you have Jake Tonjes. He's really shown out. Now, Luke Farrell, we'll get to the negative in just a bit. We talked about positives, right? Let's talk about the positives first. Ricky Pearsall, that catch, that one-handed catch, while the flag went on the defender. I mentioned this last week, but he is turning into a true number 1 receiver right in front of our eyes. A lot of the fan base were calling him a bust all over Twitter. A lot of people said, oh, no, he's just a glorified 2 or 3. But he really is becoming a true number 1 receiver. He's in year 2. Granted, he didn't have an offseason last year. Even this year, he was still recovering from some injury. But you can just see just the rapport he's built, specifically with Mac Jones. He looked like he had some connection with Brock Purdy this week, but Ricky Pearsall has just been tearing it up week in and week out. Now, he did have 4 catches for 46 yards. That long catch was 31 yards. He probably would have been close to 100 yards if he played the rest of the game because, let's face it, Brock Purdy had to rely on other guys. Juwan Jennings got hurt too, but he got to rely on Jake Tonjes. He had 3 catches for 58 yards, that 23-yard touchdown. Jake Tonjes is doing great, and when George Kittle comes back in the game, you'll have another tight end that you can rely on. So props to Jake Tonjes. What else? Again, there wasn't as much good in this game, but I want to still highlight some of the good. Christian McCaffrey had the hook and ladder with Pearsall. That looked good. Ricky Pearsall was good in the receiving, or Christian McCaffrey was good in the receiving game. Again, I mentioned 6 catches for 92 yards. That's honestly really where he's still the Christian McCaffrey of old. I'm not the running side of things. I'm not yet to give up on Christian McCaffrey. You'll have reporters, you have a lot of fans on Twitter that say, "Oh, he's not the Christian McCaffrey of old. He's washed." But let's face it. Even when Brian Robinson's in there, he's not doing much of a difference, making much of a difference. I think it's ultimately the lack of emphasis on the 49ers addressing the offensive line. Because without the 49ers addressing the offensive line, let's face it, Trent Williams, he's hit and miss right now. He's not playing like the All-Pro Hall of Famer that he's known for being. I don't know if this is age, if this is rust, if it's injuries, but he got owned today by the Jacksonville Jaguars. They were constantly getting in the backfield. Brock Purdy was constantly on the run. When you ran to the left side, Christian McCaffrey was not finding any room to run. So, and then there's a couple runs where Trent Williams, you just saw, just whiffed on the block. So there's a lot of question marks. I don't know if that falls on Christian McCaffrey, if that's Trent, or if it's both. If they're going to get better as the season goes, which you hope so. But I'm not ready to give up on Christian McCaffrey, the runner. Again, the receiving threat, he's still there. 6 catches, 92 yards, phenomenal. As a runner, again, still hoping there were flashes today, but we need to see more. We need to see more. All right, you ready to jump to some of the negative? Let's talk about things that they can work on. The 49ers, we'll start off with special teams. Special teams has always been the 49ers' Achilles heel, I think always all the way back to Jim Harbaugh with the punts against the Giants. When you have Williams in the back as the punt returner and fumbles it twice. He has one where he catches it and then force fumble, and then the next one off his knee. And so ever since then, the 49ers special teams has always been kind of that Achilles heel. They show up, they don't. You have Jake Moody. Now you have special teams where they're always at the bottom when it comes to their kick return coverage, when it comes to punt return coverage. In fact, the 49ers have not had a punt return for a touchdown when they're getting a punt in I don't know how many years. And the 49ers continue to give up big play after big play after big play. They gave up a touchdown on a punt. You saw Morstead almost caught him down, which is props to him, 41-year-old Thomas Morstead, who almost ran down the punt returner. But the fact is, this special teams is absolutely atrocious, and Kyle Shanahan is to blame. He is 8 years into this team, 8 or 9 years into this team, and the special team woes have still not been addressed. And so the 49ers need to figure out something there, because this is just getting old. Special teams, special teams, special teams. You look at the last drive, Jacksonville, ended up getting to the 35, and then Chase Lucas ends up getting a personal foul outside, causing another 15 yards, which means the last play or the last series of the game that Jacksonville had the ball, they started at midfield because of stupid, boneheaded penalties. And so that's special teams alone. That doesn't consider anything else. But let's jump over to drops. 49ers had drop after drop after drop. I want to say there were 6 drops in this game. Kendrick Bourne had 2 of them. One of them, which probably would have led to a touchdown, because he had only green grass, and it was on a 3rd down. And so it was unbelievable, because when you need a play and you have Ricky Pearsall and Kendrick Bourne hurt, you need your other guys to step up. You need Demarcus Robinson to step up. You need Kendrick Bourne to step up. And honestly, Demarcus Robinson, outside of that one catch, he didn't do anything else in the game. And so the wide receivers need to step up as well. But we're going to cut him some grace, because now it's time to talk about Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, the $265 million quarterback who wanted to get paid like the top 5 quarterbacks, did not play that way. Brock Purdy came back early from having turf toe. Now, turf toe can range anywhere. They said 2 to 5 weeks for his injury, but you have a guy like Joe Burrow who was out for 9 weeks. He's got 3 months to recover because he required surgery. But the fact is that Brock Purdy came back after 2 weeks. Honestly, I think it was either the team was telling him he needed to come back, or honestly, it was his ego saying, if Mac Jones continues to play well and beats the Jaguars and beats the Rams, I might be out of a job. And so I think he forced himself to come back, and you could tell he was favoring it because, yeah, he would scramble here and there, but he ran up and down. There wasn't a lot of braking. There wasn't a lot of shiftiness where you have to push off that toe. You look at his throws, a lot of them were sailing. Why would they sail if he's not pushing off the back foot? I can hear already some people on Twitter saying that, hey, I thought his toe was hurt. How's he airmailing it? Well, he's airmailing it because he's overcompensating with his arm, and he's trying to overcalculate, okay, if I'm not pushing off my shoulder or with my foot, I need to push more with my shoulder, and that was causing him to sail the ball multiple times. He sailed the ball against Christian McCaffrey. Yes, Christian McCaffrey is a future Hall of Fame running back. Should have caught that ball because he got one hand on it. But the fact is, it was way overthrown. You look at the ball that was intercepted. He overthrew, I believe it was Ricky Pearsall. He well overthrew him, and boom, that led to an interception. You have the other interception that kind of landed right into the tight end's hand. Yes, it was tipped, but guess what? Or right into the middle linebacker's hand. Yes, it was tipped, but Brock Purdy was just all over the place in this game. And I think if you're making $265 million a year, you can no longer rely on, oh, well, he's Mr. Irrelevant. He got his big contract extension. He's being paid like a franchise quarterback. He needs to perform like a franchise quarterback. And the fact is, when the game was on the line, when it mattered, when you had 2 minutes and 50 seconds to go and you were on the 50-yard line, you didn't need a rush, but yet you tried to extend the play, and Eric Armstead hit it out of your hand because you didn't have ball control, and you gave the ball up to the Jaguars, giving up on your team. After the defense bailed you out one more time, after Robert Saleh figured out the Jaguars' offense, the 49ers, all they had to do was go down and score, go for two to go up by 3, and they couldn't even do that. Brock Purdy, for making $265 million in his contract, there's zero excuse. Zero. Yeah, I didn't have my wide receiver. You're getting paid $265 million across your contract. You have zero excuse. You still have Christian McCaffrey. You still had on that drive, you still had Jawan Jennings and Kendrick Bourne out there. Jake Tonjes, who you just threw a touchdown to before, was out there. You could have taken the sack because it was first down at that play, because the play before you threw it to Christian McCaffrey, he made 13 yards up the left sideline. And so the fact is, Brock Purdy needs to figure this out. He came back early before he was ready because he didn't want to lose his job, but he played in the way that would cause you to lose your job. And so I think the 49ers need to really evaluate. This is more on Kyle Shanahan as well. I want to say it's probably 80-20 because Brock Purdy probably told Kyle, yep, I'm ready, because he wasn't on the injury report. But two, Kyle, you're coaching for your job too. You need to figure this out. And so that was pretty sickening. Granted, not all of it was on Brock Purdy, but if you are the franchise quarterback and paid like it, yeah, a lot of it's going to be on you. You look to Luke Farrell, who had a fumble. He's trying to get that yards after the catch. He's trying to be George Kittle, and guess what? He fumbled the ball, and which is why you probably saw more Jake Tonjes later on in the game. But that was pretty rough. And we're going to get to Fred Warner a bit because, yes, we just gave Fred Warner props. He played great today. But the fact of the matter is Fred Warner, he had 2 opportunities for interceptions, which could have changed the game. Both of them hit his hands. And without Nick Bosa, you need to, if you are the leader of the defense, you need to find ways to step up for your team. You need to find ways to change the game. And you had 2 missed opportunities with that. Yes, you had a forced fumble, but you guys didn't capitalize on that because you didn't recover it. But there were 2 times where you, Fred Warner, could have intercepted the ball, and you didn't. It hit your hands twice. And if you are the best middle linebacker in the game, which I believe you are, you need to make those plays. That is not up to your standard. I believe you would say the same thing too. If those hit your hands, you need to show the team that, you know what, the 49ers or the offense is dealing with injuries. They haven't clicked on their stride, so it's up to us. And you failed the defense at that time, Fred Warner, twice. Now, I know you wish you could have had those back, but we got to call it a spade a spade. That means the good plays, yes, we're going to praise you for that, but also the plays you should have had, we're going to call that out too. Kyle Juszczyk doesn't need to be in the game. Yes, he had that 18-yard screen on the very first play of the game, but honestly, he's just taking up. If you need I would rather have Jake Tonjes in there than Kyle Juszczyk. When George Kittle comes back, Jake Tonjes needs more touches instead of Kyle Juszczyk, because Kyle Juszczyk, he should be there to help open up lanes in the run game, and that's not happening. So what's he really in there for? 1 or 2 plays where he catches a little screen pass and maybe gets a first down. You could do that with Jake Tonjes, and Jake Tonjes is a better blocker. So I think that really needs to be looked at. I think the next big thing is the 49ers run defense. we knew that Nick Bosa was a jack of all trades and probably a master of most. The old saying goes, jack of all trades, master of none. No, Nick Bosa was jack of all trades and master of most of them. And that includes the run game. Most kind of edge rushers, that's their primary thing, is they can set the edge, or they can, rush the quarterback. They're not great against the run, but guess what? We'll bring them in on third down so they can rush the quarterback. But Nick Bosa was great on first and second down because he constantly set the edge and stopped the run. In fact, teams didn't like running his way because how well he set that edge with one arm and then would kind of fall off and go ahead and make that tackle. That's what Nick Bosa made a living on. He was phenomenal at rushing the passer, that bull rush or that speed rush where he dips down and goes around. But the fact is, they miss him in the run game. And that was very notable because let's look at Jacksonville's rushing. They had 151 yards rushing. Travis Etienne had 121 yards. Tootin had 14 yards. Brian Thomas had 7 yards. Trevor Lawrence, another 7 yards. 150 yards rushing on 32 carries. That tells me that's about 5 yards a rush. They had their day with the 49ers defensive line. And if that doesn't tell you enough, John Lynch needs to be on the phone with the Bengals to get Trey Hendrickson, because Trey Hendrickson is the closest person that you can get to a Nick Bosa, at least on the run defensive side. You're not going to emulate Nick Bosa's pass rush, even though Trey Hendrickson had 17 and 18 sacks in the past 2 years, but you really need his output when it comes to the run defense. Because if the way the 49ers play today, they are going to lose a lot of games without Nick Bosa. And you can't call it a season 4 games in. So the 49ers need to go back to the drawing board. They have a game on Thursday against the Rams. And let's face it, they're tied with the Rams at 3-1, and they cannot afford to lose Thursday. I originally had the 49ers winning against the Jags and losing to the Rams and going into week 7 at 5 or at 4-1, week 6 at 4-1. But the fact is, they lost to Jacksonville, who they should have still beat even with the 4 turnovers. And now they have a quick turnaround Thursday night and at Levi South. And who knows? The Rams are trending upwards, and the 49ers are hemorrhaging right now. And so hopefully they can figure things out quick and have short-term memory, figure out what they did wrong, and then focus on the Rams. Because if they lose this next game the way they lost this one, there's going to be a lot of question marks in Santa Clara. And so we'll see what happens. Again, hopefully we get some good news on Ricky Pearsall. We know that he went down with his knee injury. He was on the bike, tried to come back, but did not come back. My guess is he re-aggravated his knee. I don't see him playing Thursday night. So that means the 49ers are going to have to do something and do something quick. Well, that's all we have for today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.